Welcome to Something to Talk About from the Bainbridge Island Senior Community Center. I'm Reed Price. I'm hosting today, and I'm happy to have Chief Jared Moravec from the Bainbridge Island Fire Department with us today. We're going to be talking about wildfire risk, which is something that um, it's something that you might not think about because we live in the damp Pacific Northwest, but every year, and as we get to be a more populous place, it becomes more of an issue. And this is a good time to think ahead about that. Before we get there, though, I want to thank Fieldstone Communities of Bainbridge Island for sponsoring Something to Talk About. They offer independent, assisted, and memory care up on Rolling Bay, and you can find out more by going to visit them or looking at their website, fieldstonecommunities.com. You can also ask about day stay or respite care programs. Call Jamie or Celia if you'd like to schedule a tour, 206-594-1010. And I also like to mention that we are meeting and living on the ancestral homeland of the Suquamish people who have lived on the waters of the Salish Sea since time immemorial. We honor them and are learning from their stewardship of these lands and waters. And stewardship is a little bit about what we are today. So, Jared, thank you very much for agreeing to join us for a little update about the concerns about wildfire.
Absolutely, Reed. Thanks for having me.
So I know that in the last few years, well, we've had the climate has changed, but also the population has changed, and the risk of wildfire is, in fact, I think, increasing. Is that right?
Yeah, that's certainly how we would characterize things. In fact, even as we've looked at trends over the past several years, we've seen a gradual increase in the number of fires, even since COVID. Those numbers are going up. But, I first came to the department in 2006 and came with some wildland firefighting background. And in fact, shortly after I got here, I did my master's degree practicum on wildfire risk on Bainbridge, because although I hadn't lived in Washington State before, when I got here, I, I could sure recognize a potential issue when I saw it. And it led me down the path of a lot of questions and was enlightened with a lot of answers. And that was back in 2007. And then that led to the fire department working on the creation of Bainbridge Island's first community wildfire protection plan. And even in 2010, there's been the discussion of climate change for quite some time. But even in 2010, here on Bainbridge, it wasn't necessarily it didn't have the spotlight, and certainly wildfire wasn't a thing that garnered a lot of interest. But as we've seen since 2010, we've seen the summers are warmer. Sometimes they stick around a little bit longer. Uh, we have seen a lot of significant conflagrations and serious wildfires around the country, but Eastern Washington specifically. But we've also seen a number of uh, large wildfires on the west side of the Cascades that result in larger responses, state fire mobilizations on the west side, which prior to that time were pretty much unheard of. And even in the past couple years, we've had DNR helicopters working in Kitsap County to assist with fire suppression for wildfires. So yeah, a lot has changed, and some of you may have heard my spiel before. I feel like we have two seasons on Bainbridge Island. We have landslide season in the winter when it's rainy and wet, and then we have wildfire season in the summer. So we're definitely making that transition. We're well on our way to getting into that summertime where things are starting to dry out.
So I was one of the reasons I thought that this would be a good time to talk to you is because many of us have been pretty active the last few weekends in our yards, looking at what we do in the springtime as we head to summer, either planting or tidying up, limbing trees, and so forth. Can you tell us anything about what the concerns from the fire department's point of view are about how to have safe residential areas?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the things that I will direct all of the listeners and viewers towards is the fire department's website. That's BIFD, as in Bainbridge Island Fire Department .org. So if you go to our webpage, we have a section on fire safety, and there's lots and lots and lots of resources on all kinds of different fire safety topics. But specifically, we have great resources on what you can do where you live to make things more fire safe as it pertains to wildfire. So there's a program called Firewise, and Firewise is a national program that provides some parameters and some guidance to all of us for things we can do to make our places of living safer. So whether you have your own house that you're living in, or you live in more community living, uh, there's still going to be landscaping and things that can be done. So if you go and check the fire department's website, there's great resources, but we can walk through a couple things since it is a
Yeah,
nice time.
I'm just gonna, so it'll be under this community risk reduction. I've got the,
Community risk reduction. Yep. And
and
then
then,
wildfire preparedness and mitigation. There it is. And
and
there
this,
are lots and lots and lots of resources there. So you'll see we've got the Community Wildfire Protection Plan is there if you want to read about how we've looked at some of the risk of wildfire on Bainbridge Island. But then there's lots of other things there. And what I would draw your particular attention to is a couple things. There's the Firewise link at the top, which will take you off our website to a national Firewise site. And there's also the Wildfire Home Hazard Assessment Checklist, which is a couple up from the bottom there. And that particular checklist, if you want to open that up, read. So what that's going to do is going to provide you some more specific guidance of some things you can do to make things safer if a wildfire was to occur. So now the fire department at no charge will come out and walk you through this assessment, and we can have some of our experts. I see that Janine Cordemonch, our community risk reduction coordinator, is also here with us today. She's one of the experts that we have on staff that will go out and can help walk you through this list of things you can do. But if we're talking about things, examples, even at the most basic of level, uh, making sure that your gutters are cleaned. So it's always a priority in the fall before the rains come because you don't want your gutters to overflow. But after winter comes through, it really also needs to be a priority as we head into summer because all of those wet leaves and litter that accumulate and stay damp over the winter time, they will dry out in the summer. And what we encourage folks to do when you're thinking about things you can do to keep your home safe, your place of living safe, we want you to think like an ember because it's typically not the big fire front that you see on TV that's roaring through the trees. That's typically not what's catching homes and structures on fire. It's an ember that's getting blown and getting into a spot, and that fire will start small and go big. So the gutter example is a perfect example of that. If your gutters aren't clean going into the summertime, all of those leaves and pine needles and branches are going to dry out throughout the summer. And then if we have a fire, it will take one ember and just one ember to get into that gutter, into that all of that now dried leaves and needles and material. And that's how we typically will lose houses during a wildfire. So that's just one example of a lot of different things that you'll find on this checklist that you can do to make things a little bit safer if there was a fire.
yeah, well, and that kind of gets to the next question I was going to ask you about because as it gets drier and the risk increases, we often have had uh, different levels of burn ban or concerns about that. So can you talk a little bit about what what tools you have at your disposal to try to help us help you and help all of us not end up with a house afire.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a couple different levels of burn ban, and I think as it pertains to burn ban, uh, what I will say is that Bainbridge Island is pretty much in a perpetual state of being in a burn ban. And what I mean by that is because we live in what the Puget Sound Clean Air Agency considers an urban growth area, things like yard debris burning aren't permitted at any time on the island. Now, there's other places in Kitsap County where that is permitted, but on Bainbridge Island, through the Puget Sound Clean Air rules and also through the city's burning ordinance, we're kind of in this burn ban all the time. Now, some exceptions to that would be recreational fires. So a campfire or a fire in a fire pit or a fire ring that where you're only burning dry season firewood. It can't be more than 3 feet in diameter. Um, those are generally permitted year round until we declare a burn ban. And the way we do burn bans in Kitsap County, they're not necessarily specific to Bainbridge Island. All of the Kitsap County fire chiefs consult with the county fire marshal, and to make sure that we've got consistent messaging and timing, we do those burn bans countywide. So if we go into, let's say, uh, the first level of burn ban, that first level of burn ban starts to pull some things back a little bit uh, in terms of what you can do. Um, in terms of being able to have that recreational fire. There's certain scenarios where we issue burning permits. So, like for agricultural properties, we have the ability through the city's ordinance to issue burn permits specifically for a agricultural operation that's got pest control or some debris. We can issue burn permits specifically for that. As we get into these various stages of burn bans, some of those things start getting pulled back and we can't do that. And then the highest level of burn ban, there's just no burning permitted, period. Permits are revoked. There's no recreational fires, none of that. Now, last year, we were able to make some changes, some common sense changes in the city's burning ordinance. The fire department made some suggestions of certain things that, like propane gas fire tables, don't really, that's not the risk we're talking about during a burn ban. We're talking about solid fuel where embers could get blown. That's really the purpose of those burn bans. So
So might that affect charcoal burn?
if we get into what we call a level 2 or a phase 2 burn ban, which is the most severe, in those cases, um, charcoal grills are not permitted. Propane is okay, but you can't do charcoal because of the risk of uh, blowing burning embers out of that grill into combustible vegetation and starting a fire.
Yep, yep. And of course, it can you can have the other ways the material can get out of control just because you tip over or you have some sort of a problem. I wondered if there were some common experiences that you've had while you've been here on Bainbridge that have been examples of the kind of danger that you've seen more than once from fires getting out of control.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I can provide three examples of things, two of which are really in our control, and the third of which is a little bit less. So, common causes of wildfires that we're seeing that I can think of where there's been some level of severity. One is you have that recreational fire, and it's either too big and gets out of control, or it's left unattended. Like I'm not going to put the fire out. I'm going to let it burn itself out. That's never a good practice. When you are done with that recreational fire, you need to make ash soup of that thing and make sure that it is totally out. We've seen a lot of unattended, escaped recreational fires that have turned into more significant fires. So that would be one example. The second example is fireworks. And I know the city council a couple years ago passed a full ban on fireworks, and we've certainly seen a decrease in the number of those incidents. But when we didn't have that fireworks ban, we were seeing fireworks related fires. And part of the issue too with that is when that was happening, everybody was shooting them off at the same time, so we could get spread pretty thin in those times. And then the third and most common cause of wildfires or vegetation fires on the island is actually power lines. Vegetation getting in contact with the power lines. Uh, we've got a great partnership with PSE. The fire department has a specific liaison that we work with to discuss issues and look for opportunities for improvement. But one thing that I will say is if you see near your property where it looks like there's some conflict between power lines and vegetation, PSC has a number that you can call to report those concerns. It's a non-emergency number. And I can say from personal experience, I've called that. I actually called that number last year. I live just off of Peterson Hill Road on the north end, and I watched as things got drier. This pine branch just started sagging a little bit more, and no rain, and sagged a little bit more. And I was worried that it was going to come in contact with the lines. I called the number, explained the problem. Within an hour, they had called me back. And within a couple hours, they had a crew out there and they made that situation safe. So I can't speak for everybody's experience with that, but my personal experience is that system that they have in place seems to work.
That's great. So those are the questions I had. Are there any other thoughts that you would leave us as we head into summer, getting there?
Yeah, I love summertime. Been spoiled here the past few days with some sunny weather, and that's great. I think what some thoughts I would leave everybody with is don't wait until those high fire danger days to prepare and do something. There's always something that you can do to help uh, prepare your property where you live to be prepared, whether that is fire-wise related things or whether or not it's making sure that you have a go bag and a plan in case we call for an evacuation. And on our website, we've got the evacuation plan. Evacuations on Bainbridge Island are going to be very challenging. So anything you can do to be prepared with a go bag, know a couple different ways out from where you are currently living. Uh, those are two big takeaways. You know, kind of prepare property ahead of time, but also be prepared in the event that we have something and we ask folks to leave. I think those are two big takeaways because I realize that some people again may live in a group living setting, in an apartment or condos or whatnot, where this may not necessarily apply. Like I'm not going to go out and trim the bushes at at my apartment complex,
Right.
but being prepared in the event that we have to evacuate, that's just a good all around thing.
Yep.
Wildfire to be ready.
Great. Thank you very much. I'll repeat the website, bifd.org and
Yes.
the bifd.org/fire-safety for that whole checklist of stuff that we were looking at earlier. Thank you, Chief Moravec. I appreciate your time.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Have a great day, everybody.
You too. Bye-bye.